On the morning of May 25, 1982, the Falklands conflict boiled down to a moment so tense it could double as a Navy thriller. Picture two pairs of Argentine A-4 Skyhawks, flown by pilots who knew their aircraft were outmatched on paper. No standoff radar, no fancy warning systems, just iron nerves and the skill to fly low enough to read the waves. Lead pilot Captain Pablo Carballo and his wingman hugged the coastline of Pebble Island, skimming the sea like stones to evade British radar. Behind them came Lieutenant Mariano Velasco and Ensign Jorge Barrionuevo, carrying smaller but more reliable bombs. The target, HMS Coventry and HMS Broadsword, British ships covering landing operations. For an American audience, imagine a small squadron of Vietnam-era jets trying to outfox a modern frigate. Only this wasn't a movie. It was real, chaotic, and utterly consequential. What made the attack work? And why did Coventry, a ship designed to fend off aerial attack, end up crippled? The answer lives in choices, technical limitations, and sheer human improvisation. First, the Argentine pilots exploited weaknesses in shipboard radar and missile systems. Sea-skimming aircraft are a nightmare for radar operators because the ocean surface creates clutter. Low-flying jets can fall below radar horizons and blend into the sea return. That's what Carballo did. He used Pebble Island as terrain masking so Coventry's radar briefly lost contact. Coventry responded as it should, alerting the crew and preparing its Sea Dart missiles. But Sea Dart had a minimum engagement range. Hugging the coast put the Skyhawks inside that dead zone. Think of it like trying to swat a fly with a baseball bat. You've got range, but not the precision at whisper distance. On top of that, Coventry's radar and fire control systems were strained by multiple contacts and the presence of a friendly Harrier in the area. Rules of engagement, target identification, and the fog of war collided. Captain David Hart-Dyke had to make split-second calls. A possibly friendly Harrier was in the same airspace, and misidentifying that plane could mean friendly fire. He ordered the Harrier away and prioritized missile launches, a decision that would haunt him when the Skyhawks vanished from his radar at the last instant. Meanwhile, Broadsword's Seawolf missile system was optimized for close-in defense. Fast, point-defense missiles built to stop sea-skimming threats. In practice, operators achieved a lock as the Skyhawks approached, and then computers were overloaded when a single radar contact split into two. The guidance logic couldn't cope with the ambiguity. The missile system faltered under stress. Layer in the human element aboard Coventry. The crew fired everything they had as the attackers roared overhead. Deck guns, automatic weapons, rifles, and tracer and smoke filled the air. Coventry's sailors performed a textbook evacuation after the ship was hit. Disciplined, practiced abandoned ship procedures, and coordinated rescue efforts saved many lives that day. But procedure and bravery could not undo the physics of a 250-kilo and a 1,000 lb bomb striking a modern warship hull. Bombs that skip, bounce, and fail to detonate can still deliver catastrophic blunt trauma to internal compartments. In Coventry's case, strikes tore open the operations room and engine spaces, wrecking command and propulsion. The scene aboard the attacking Skyhawks was electric, pilots cheering as smoke billowed, adrenaline and patriotism mixing in the South Atlantic chill. All 4 Argentine pilots returned safely to base. Their A-4s scored a tactical success. For U.S. viewers, the episode is a reminder that asymmetry, skill, audacity, and an understanding of an opponent's technical limits can temporarily level a battlefield, even against a technologically superior foe. But this wasn't just a tale of daring pilots. It was a case study in how technology can both protect and betray. Sea Dart, for all its power, required a particular engagement geometry. Seawolf, while exceptional at point defense, depended on clean radar returns and unobstructed lines of fire, both compromised in the chaos. And software? Missile guidance and computer systems of the early 1980s weren't designed to handle multiple, tightly spaced, low-level targets scattering across a cluttered radar screen. There's an engineering lesson that remains relevant. Complexity can introduce fragility. Redundancy helps, but it can't replace sound tactics and situational awareness. Another angle is the psychological and leadership dimension. Captain Hart-Dyke's instinct to protect his ships and follow protocol, ordering missiles, directing maneuvers, trying to keep the Harrier clear, was reasonable. But commanders operate on incomplete information. On a different day, with different radar returns or a slightly altered approach by the Skyhawks, Hart-Dyke's choices could have produced a different outcome. It highlights how warfare often hinges on a handful of human decisions made under stress. We also need to unpack tactics that seem counterintuitive until you visualize them. Skip bombing. The A-4's bombs bouncing on the sea and then striking ships sound like World War II technique, but in low-angle attacks it's deadly. In this incident, one bomb punched into Broadsword's side without exploding. Yet the kinetic impact, structural damage, and shrapnel had immediate consequences. Coventry's loss, 19 sailors killed and roughly 170 rescued, was a heavy human toll and served as a wake-up call for navies worldwide about layered defenses against low-level threats. For American viewers, it's natural to compare this to Vietnam-era lessons about ship vulnerability to anti-ship missiles and low-flying aircraft, or to more recent concerns where anti-access area denial systems and sea-skimming missiles factor into strategy. The Falklands engagement is a microcosm of that dynamic, a modern navy against a smaller air force, where the smaller force used environment and timing to force the fight into a narrow window when missile systems couldn't operate effectively. Operational takeaways for modern commanders and planners are clear. First, integrated air and sea situational awareness, linking airborne early warning, over-the-horizon sensors, and shipboard systems, reduces blind spots. Second, layered and overlapping point defenses matter, as does system design that tolerates ambiguous returns and can rapidly retask. Third, human training for degraded systems, manual overrides, reliance on lookouts, and clear command procedures remains irreplaceable. Coventry's crew showed that professionalism and training still save lives when technology fails. Finally, there's a moral and storytelling element that keeps this episode resonant. The Argentinians achieved a tactical victory that had limited strategic effect. It didn't change the war's outcome, but it exacted a cost, produced heroic and tragic narratives, and forced both sides to reassess tactics and doctrine. For a U.S. audience, it's a story about edge case warfare, how small teams using unconventional methods can alter outcomes, and a human story of courage, fear, and survival at sea. Watch film footage or listen to first-hand accounts, and you notice sensory detail, engines low over the water, the smell of burning fuel, the sudden cacophony of alarms, and the disciplined efficiency of sailors executing evacuation drills. Those textures make history visceral and turn a naval engagement into something that sticks with you long after the statistics fade. So when we say the A-4 Skyhawks sank the British, it's accurate tactically. Skillful pilots using simple aircraft to exploit specific limits. But it's not the whole story. The sinking resulted from a cascade, low-level ingress, radar clutter, minimum engagement envelopes, overloaded missile guidance, split-second human decisions, and the brutal reality of explosives meeting steel. Each factor alone might not have sunk Coventry. Together they did. The episode stands as a case study in naval warfare, a cautionary tale about over-reliance on technology, and an ode to human ingenuity and sacrifice. It's also a narrative filmmakers and historians keep returning to because it captures a clean, cinematic conflict. David versus Goliath, modern tech versus old-school daring, and above all, the human cost behind headline victories. If you're into military history or love a high-stakes narrative, the May 25 strike is a compact lesson in how small actions and technical nuances can ripple into dramatic consequences. In short, the A-4 Skyhawks didn't win the Falklands War, but on May 25, 1982, they exposed how tactical savvy and daring can overwhelm technological advantages, and their strike left a mark on naval doctrine that still matters today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a tight, high-stakes battle and want more cinematic history breakdowns with clear takeaways, hit subscribe. Your support helps unlock more stories that mix tech, human drama, and lessons you can actually use.